Matt Aguilar here from Comicbook.com, and today I have the esteemed pleasure of speaking to writer and architect of Night Terrors himself, Joshua Williamson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks so much for making the time. I know your schedule is crazy hectic these days. You're doing so much, man.
I'm doing way too much. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of stuff, but my schedule is fairly scary, so it made sense for me to work on a horror event.
Well, that's actually a perfect setup because obviously we're going to be talking Night Terrors. It's an event that people still have a lot of questions about, like how it's going to affect our heroes. We do know it's going to affect especially Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, but it's going to have lots of tethers throughout everybody else. And we're going to be specifically talking the free comic book day preview that people have a chance to check out. What inspired the series, just kind of overall, this particular event for you?
I mean, really it was about like my love of horror. Ben Abernathy, who's the executive editor of DC Comics, he also was the one that came up with the deceased concept years ago, and he really loves horror. And so him and I would always have this conversation about horror, wanting to do horror stuff in DCU and trying to find places for it. And last year, we started talking about what the DCU was going to look like on the other side of Dark Crisis. And we knew the Dawn of DC piece, we knew that, we knew some of the bigger story pieces. But in the summer, we felt like we were missing something. And so we started having conversations about what we would do in July and August. Like if we were doing an event, I'm also a big advocate for doing shorter events. So I was like, all right, cool, July and August, what can we do in July and August? We started talking to creators, taking pitches and talking about some different ideas. And at one point I was just going to meet Ben to talk about it. We were just going to talk about that, talk about some other stuff, talk about Green Arrow, talk about Batman and Robin, just talk about different ideas. And I was driving to meet with him and I just suddenly clicked in my head. I was like, oh, nightmares. Because nightmares allow us to do horror, but also allows us to bring our characters into a new world that isn't an alternate reality, right? It doesn't involve a multiverse, doesn't involve time travel. And it makes nightmares are really personal. So it allowed us an opportunity to tell a really personal story with these characters. So once I got to the bar, I was going to meet Ben at, and I just sat down and I was like, nightmares. That's what we're going to do. And he was like, yes, okay, how? And we started talking about it, talking about what character we wanted to do, how it would look. And they always got really excited, and we made sure that I wrote a really long document that was all about, let's make this a horror event, let's make it fun. And then, started talking to editorial and talking to other talent about it and started pitching it to people. And then here we are.
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of short events, like shorter events that, I love the year-long, spiraling epics. And then I also just love to get, bringing it to wrestling. I love a short pay-per-view sometimes. It's nice that.
Yeah. It's nice when you have a story that like a big story that. Well, it's weird, right? Because I think the way that like really the events we're doing right now, where we're doing shorter events, you look at how Lazarus Planet was, look at this is, maybe some other things that are coming up. Yes, they're shorter, but they're still part of a bigger story. Right. And I think that's also when we talk about wrestling. It's like it's nice when you have these narratives that sort of they feel like they come in and out throughout the year, but they all kind of add up, and you might even forget about it for a minute, but it just kind of you start to see at the end of the year the bigger tapestry that was being built up. And that's what Night Terrors is this kind of, we're not even at the halfway point of the Dawn of DC storyline yet. That'll come later, but we're definitely at a point where it was like we had certain things that we needed to get on the table, right? Like there's certain toys and elements of the Dawn of DC storyline that we need to start getting on the table, and Night Terrors works as that. Like it definitely allows us to make a couple moves in a way that will surprise people. And there are some big story points coming throughout Night Terrors that will really impact the line throughout the rest of the year.
Well, in the preview itself, it starts with my boy Damian. Well, actually,
my boy too. He's my little baby boy. Yeah.
Oh man, two-pronged here, because number one, if you're gonna do horror, visuals matter so much because you have to capture something special about it, but also terrifying and play with things. Chris Bogolo is one of my favorite artists.
Oh, me too. me too. He was on the bucket list. I feel very lucky that I've been able to work with a lot of creators who I really looked up to and sort of have been really big fans of. And he was always one on the list. And I was like, I'm not sure when we're going to be able to work with them. They've been at Marvel for so long. And a lot of my DC number ones always have wraparounds lately. And that's because of Generation X. Like he drew a wraparound cover of Generation X. And so which is also a foil. And that's part of why whenever I do a book now, I'm like, can we do a wraparound? Can it be a foil? And it's because of that comic. Whenever I'm doing like an ongoing series or anything like that. But yeah, he was on my bucket list, and I think he obviously has a lot of experience with dreams. So it made a lot of sense for him to be the one to do this free comic day book, and then he just nailed it. And with Damian, obviously my love of Damian is why he's there. Another reason why he was there is because when we started talking a lot about, the part of the pitch was like, oh, it's Freddy versus the DCU, right? It's Nightmare on DC Street. Well, those always have what? Teenagers in danger. So who's our teenager? Damian. So it all just sort of came together.
Oh my God. So that is like a tagline of it. I love the Freddy versus a DC Elm Street. Like, I just love the idea.
Yeah, and we have a new character we're introducing named Insomnia. He's the one that is sort of our dream master, our nightmare master in the story, and he's very angry, and he's angry at the heroes of the DCU, and he's trying to find something in their nightmares. So that's a big part of the actual Night Terrors event, and you can see the hint of that in the Free Comic Day, because he's telling that to Damian. He's like, there's something hidden and I'm trying to find it. And once I find it, you will pay. Like, he talks about that in the special. So yeah, it all comes together.
Well, and I love to, one of the reasons I love Damian is just like his practical application in any scenario, right? I mean, he's good at this, he's experienced. So there's that running dialogue of he's seeing things and he's just talking himself out of it. And it's just so matter of factly. He's like, I've already dealt with that. I already, like, we put that baggage to rest. Like, all of those things you would immediately think would throw him, don't. And it really takes a lot to hammer him down.
Yeah, well, I think with him, he's such a fascinating, like, emotional character, right? And I always debate with him, like, how much of it is a front, because we know he is an emotional person, but he is very good at putting up walls. Like, he is able to put up these walls and their defense mechanisms. Like, it's interesting, people talk about him being like one of the greatest, like, assassins of the DCU, and I think part of that is that he also has really strong defenses, and part of the defenses are the walls that he puts up. And so to tell a story where it's like he's going into it and he has these defenses, and of course they're going to come at him with emotional stuff, but he's just like, no, I've dealt with that. No, I'm fine with this. I'm okay with this. But as you see, he's still a kid. Like, that's one thing with Damian that when I was working on the book, I would have different conversations with different people, and everybody would be like, oh, he's this deadly assassin. He's, this little killer. And I'm like, dude, he's a teenager. Like, let's think about him as a teenager for a little bit. And as much as he's able to put up those kinds of defenses, he's still a kid. So for me, that's the stuff I always think about when I'm writing him, is I think of him as a teenager first, and then everything else after that.
No, for sure. Obviously this is going to impact, a lot of, or if not all of, the various DC heroes, but does seem to be a focus on Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
And Wonder Woman, yeah.
What can you tease about how this affects them? Or was there anything you wanted to kind of avoid in those stories, or how did you approach them?
With all three of them, I mean, it's in the first issue of the actual event, which is called Night Terrors, First Blood. There is a murder in the Hall of Justice, and the Hall of Justice is basically just a museum at this point. And so it's actually in a section of the Hall of Justice that nobody is supposed to have access to except for the three of them. So something happens, and so it draws them all in to try to find out, this murder that's happened in the Hall of Justice. And the process of investigating that murder, things start to balloon out. But Deadman is a point of view of the whole series, and Deadman is realizing that some of the heroes in the DCU are haunted by something. He's trying to figure out what it is, and that's part of it. Is Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman are actually haunted by something, and so, or by someone, I guess I should say, and that will play in. And so I started playing with those ideas of, like, what could these three be haunted by? Like, what are the things that haunt them, and in terms of a person, but also in terms of story with them. On the other side, I don't know much spoilers I can get into. Like, obviously I write Superman, and so it's like, for me, the stuff that's going to happen after and how it connects is really easy. And then I was working on the Batman one, I talked to Chip about the stuff that he has planned, and the stuff that happens in Night Terror, like, impact Batman immediately, which you'll see later in the year. There'll be other stuff we talk about it. with Wonder Woman because like Tom King is one of my closest friends, and I actually read Wonder Woman yesterday, #1, and it's awesome. He and I were able to talk about some of this stuff and able to say like, hey, you know, here are some of the story pieces that are coming. You know, do you want to bounce off any of this stuff? And so with them, it was really just about finding out what haunts them. I mean, that's really like what haunts them on this, like the big, you know, DC level, and then what haunts them on the smaller, like more emotional level, and how, and then connecting those pieces together.
Oh man, well, I cannot wait to read the full issue. I'm you know, lucky enough to have been able to read the preview already, and the preview is dope. So excited. Thank you so much for taking the time. Also, before I let you go, I have to say quick kudos on Superman.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say thank you again for the really nice reviews and stuff. I'm really glad that you've really enjoyed it.
Rules.
Yeah,
Jamal is killing that, man.
Was it? Oh, Jamal, dude. Every page Jamal does, I'm just so good every time. Yeah, Jamal is the best. Like he's a genius. Like every time stuff comes in, like issue 4, you'll see in a few weeks, just looks amazing. Yeah, it's really awesome.
Well, cannot wait. And then of course everyone can check out the free comic book day preview on May 6th. It's right around the corner, man.
Yeah,
so
2 weeks.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's coming up on us. Yeah. Right on.
And
Thank you.
of course, you can check out all of our coverage on this book and everything going on at DC right here on comicbook.com.